Welcome to the Oracle class for November the 7th, 2022. More stories from the secret city. And this morning, we have some guests with us that are going to talk to us about the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association, about the Oak Ridge History Museum, and about a special event that's coming up this Thursday night, November the 10th. And we can start this off by focusing first on that event. Mick, if that's all right with you, we'll let Katatra and Mike talk about the event, and then you can, you want to introduce it?
Sure.
And make some comments about it. And Katatra, you and Mike just join in as it seems natural. Okay, Mike, Mick, go ahead.
Okay. I thought I'd begin by giving a little background on the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association. And but first I wanted to thank Oracle for this invitation and all of the good programs Oracle does. It's a real asset to the community. So we thank you and thanks for inviting us today. I'll start with the beginning for the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association, or ORHPA for short. It got its start in September 1999. One of the things that prompted it was there was a lot of demolition going on back in the 1990s, and many Oak Ridge structures were being lost at that time. And there was really no champion for Oak Ridge history at that time. There was no local heritage group promoting the preservation of our history. And just a year earlier, in 1998, we lost the last two dormitory buildings, Charlotte and Cheyenne Hall. These were the full-size dorm buildings. They were in pretty good shape. They were owned by the Department of Energy. But those buildings were sold, and with the stipulation that they be demolished. And we felt that wasn't the proper way to handle the process under the National Historic Preservation Act. There was concern among others as well. I remember Howard Harvey giving me a call and expressing his concern and said something needs to be done. And I remember Bobby Martin was another one who wrote a letter to the editor of the paper and was saying she was concerned. So long story short, I made a commitment on 9/9/99. That's an easy date to remember, but to call a meeting. And so I did, and in late September 99, we had our first meeting, and we've been meeting ever since. We applied for our charter with the state and became an official 501c3 nonprofit. And I remember one of our first purchases was a tape recorder. We wanted to start getting these oral histories of early Oak Ridgers. We called them the Oak Ridge pioneers. So we did interviews and started that process. Jim Kolb was a big help in getting that effort going. And Ed Westcott, everyone knows Ed. He was an early member of our group and helped us in many ways because he was here from the very first and could answer many of our questions. Now, it's not part of the mission of the ORHPA to own properties, but we kind of fell into that because there was a vacant building sitting over there on the corner of the Oak Ridge Turnpike and Robertsville Road, and that was commonly called the Wildcat Den building. And at that time that our group formed, it was owned by the city of Oak Ridge, and they declared it surplus to their needs. So it was a growing concern that that building, one of the original community centers, would be demolished. So our group started a petition and gathered a lot of signatures. It was a Save the Wildcat Den petition. And then that led to a rally. We had a live band and a big to-do. And so long story short, we acquired the building from the city. we gave it its original name back, Midtown Community Center, as it was known back in the days of the Manhattan Project. Over time, we had people donating items to us, and we thought, well, this would be great to put on display someday. So a dream formed to someday have a museum. But we were running out of space because the Wildcat Den room is available for rent, and we couldn't fill that up. So, but what actually prompted us to act on that dream to form a museum was the Department of Energy was downsizing the American Museum of Science and Energy. They wanted to go with a greater focus on science and less on history. And so we felt that, well, we can fill that void and we can say more about history. So the Oak Ridge History Museum was born, and thanks to many volunteers, won't go into naming all of those now, but we opened in 2018. And of course, COVID came along and that slowed things down for a while, but we're real proud of our museum. Now, this might be a good time for Carla to talk about the museum, or we can go with another phase, however you'd like to go.
Ray, I think you're muted. I can see you're talking.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask Mike and Katatra if you can stay with us longer. If you need to go, we will insert you now and then go back to Carla. You okay to stay? Yeah. Okay. Mike, you all right to stay?
Yeah, I've got, 15, 20 minutes anyway, easy. Okay.
You want to hear what Carla's got to say anyway. Okay. Tell us about the Oak Ridge History Museum.
Okay. I kind of mix giving you such a great run through on it. And I kind of want to talk a little bit more about a couple of changes that we've had. One being our admission has gone up. We were in discussions about that for a few months. And so we decided to raise our admission to $10 a person, and then $8 if they're first responder or military or a veteran, and goes to $8 for children that are 12 and under, and then free if they're under 5, I believe. So anyway, and then we also have $8 admission for groups. And, the part of that was we were expanding our exhibits, and we were getting such good feedback from the community and people that were coming in, and we really needed to be able to support our costs. Everybody that works there is a volunteer, except for a couple of people that we bring in for cleaning and stuff, but otherwise it's all volunteer. And so we do try to keep a lot of things, all of our costs down. I do want to tell you about a couple of new exhibits. So one of them is the fire department exhibit. And if you come in, and it's just really cool to see. We have a neat video from the 40s, and it talks about some of the parades and gives some videos of the firemen actually at work, doing some training. And we also have a brand new memorial in there that was donated by the fire department here in Oak Ridge, that is a replica of the one at the local fire department. I think it's the one on there it is, Old Chief. And so Old Chief was the fireman's dog that was, they think he was a Dalmatian. We're not sure. He may be a little bit mixed, but it doesn't really matter. He was the dog, and he was the one that was given to the Oak Ridge Fire Department by Knox County or Knoxville, I guess. Maybe they sent over this great dog. And so this memorial is on the Turnpike's fire station, and this replica that they had made for us by Clinton, I think Clinton Memorial Monuments made this for us. So we're pretty proud of this, and it's just been added in the past 3 weeks. So that's a great thing to come see. We also have this exhibit right here is the part of the fire department exhibit too. So a lot of new pictures up here from the Ed Westcott days, a lot of clips you can see from the newspapers. And it's a really cool exhibit. There's some things in there donated by the Tom Scott's estate. So a lot of, I think this will just probably keep expanding, because the more people see it, the more they find things. And we still have quite a few artifacts that left to go in there too. Another exhibit that I wanted to talk, sorry.
Before you leave that one, I need to say that some of these photographs were given to me, and I brought them down to the museum. And I think that was about the time that you were beginning to think about an exhibit for the fire department. And I would encourage our folks who are on here today to realize that these kinds of things can really contribute greatly to our museum. So if you know of people who have photographs or who have artifacts, and their second generation from them probably won't even know what they are. But if you'll donate them to the museum, we may very well be able to make some exhibits, this one being a good example. These photographs were just given to me saying, I don't know what else to do with them, Ray. And I took them down to the museum. So I just wanted to insert that, Carla. I'm sorry for getting you off stride, but I wanted to insert that.
No, that's perfectly fine. And we have a really good curator. One of our curators at the museum is Bobby Martin, and she does such a wonderful job of getting things where they need to go. It's been wonderful. So, and then the fire department exhibit came together with, excuse me, the help of David Heck, and of course Don Honeycutt, and the firemen that were involved with it too, and of course Ray. And so it's just been one of those projects that once they kind of got everything accumulated, it went into that room pretty fast. So I was very impressed with the work that they did on that. Also, another it's kind of a new old exhibit, but we've been collecting for a number of years items in regard to the special engineering department or division. And we have a whole room that's displayed now on that. There's several old uniforms that we have. And that room is it's loaded, it's full. I haven't even fully gone through the whole thing yet since Bobby got that up. I've spent a lot of time in there, but it's quite interesting. And you could, if you're interested in what the engineering division did, these were all recruits that came out mostly out of universities as they were trying to bring in people to work on the project. And so you have people come in quite often to the museum that will say, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, somebody, there's a lot of people that come in and say they know that exhibit. We've had people recognize the badges from the exhibit, some of the emblems from the exhibit that the engineers wore. So it's a very interesting exhibit as well. We've added on to a few other things here and there, but our biggest addition this year has been the hutment. It's nearing completion. It's not all the way there yet, but we have been giving some individual tours out there. I think Don Honeycutt told me the other day after we got done with the early voting that we'll probably have it available for people to come in and see. We have a few of the items in there now, and we don't have power hooked up to it yet, so we'll have to keep it a little bit limited in terms of what time of the day it's open. But since we're open during the daylight hours, I think we'll be okay. So we will have a ribbon cutting on the hutment in the probably in the late winter, early spring to kind of formalize that. But if you don't know what the Hutman is, you can see it as you pull up onto Robertsville Road, right across from the Kroger entrance on Robertsville. You can see it on the back side of the museum. And our Hutma is going to be representing the lives of those first construction workers, and in particular, the Black community that came and were assigned to the Hutments, and the segregated community part of that as well. So we will have, hopefully, that story being told a little bit more expansively with that Hutment. So that was part of the, I think, the intention of getting that constructed. And so we certainly want to thank our partners in getting that construction done, the ESG Construction Group, who donated their labor and time to do that. Also the Nuclear Care Health, I'm going to probably say that wrong, Terry Nom, Nuclear Care Health Project Community. I'm not saying that right. And Terry, jump in there and correct me on that, because he and I both get that mixed up. But, and then also the Oak Ridge Historical Preservation Association. And one of our members of that is Al
Wolf.
Well, thank you. I'm a little bit fumbly today. Al Wolf, who is an architect up in Pennsylvania, and he's a graduate of Oak Ridge High School. And he's heavily involved with helping us in our association. So he also was one of our sponsors on that. So I think I'm going to just say, be looking forward to getting that. Oh, one other thing I don't think Mick mentioned this, but I do want to mention it. We're starting our fundraising for a statue for Ed Westcott. And if you are interested in donating to that project for his statue, it's going to be in Jackson Square, and you can donate to that at the Pinnacle Bank. Make sure you put a note on there that it is for the Ed Westcott Memorial. There's also another memorial that is being planned for the Scarborough 85, and there'll be more information about that one coming out soon. That will be a big memorial that will be over in the former Freedom Bell site in Bissell Park. And so we have a couple of big projects that we're going to be involved with here in Oak Ridge concerning our history and our stories yet to tell, and celebrations of the fantastic community that has come together in Oak Ridge. So if you're interested in donating to either of those or both, please keep in mind you can go to Pinnacle Bank for both of those and donate to either or, and we'd be so pleased and happy to take your donations on those, because this will be a long time coming, but we're real excited about both of those projects. So I think I'll close my part out now and let Katatra and Mike have a chance to speak on their subjects.
Thank you, Carla. Before we go to Mike and Katatra, are there any of you that have questions for Carla or for Mick? And we'll encourage you even again after Mike and Katatra finish. But if you had a burning question about the museum, yes, please, Miriam, go.
What are the hours that it's open?
Thanks, Miriam. I was just going to say, I had this written down to mention. The hours right now are Thursday and Friday from 10 until 2, and on Saturday from 10 until 3. And we're hoping to expand those hours. So really what that's contingent on is trying to get more volunteers. So we have really a strong group of volunteers that are willing to even work some extra hours, but we would like to open on Wednesdays. That would coincide with a tour that goes around, a bus tour that is often going around through the Secret City, and we'd like to be able to be open to offer our services to them. And so in order to do that, we just need more volunteers. So if anybody on here is interested in volunteering, we would love to talk to you about that, take your application. And it's not really an application, it's just, please come on. We would love to have you. We'll help you, train you in any way we can. And it's just a great opportunity to get to know your city better as well. So.
Any other questions for Carla? All right, Katatra and Mike, tell us about Thursday night.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us and speaking about the upcoming Legends Behind the Plate on Thursday, November 10th. Before we get started, I'm going to attempt to share my screen so you can see the invitation here. If you give me a thumbs up, that would be great to know if you can see it. Fantastic.
It looks good.
Yeah. Thank you. So again, my name is Katatra Vasquez, and I am a board member of the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association and local author of 2 books, Atomic Hope and Josie's Hope, A Secret City Revealed. Well, as sitting in the board, and one of our board members, Mick mentioned, hey, we have someone who has donated to us a Oak Ridge Bombers uniform. And yeah. And so I raised my hand because I'm enthusiastic like that and said, oh, wow, we should do a whole program around the Oak Ridge Bomber story. So maybe I spoke too fast. And so within the last couple of months, we have been planning a program in celebration of the Oak Ridge Bombers. So that is on Thursday, November the 10th at 6:30. And I'm really, really excited about this program. In true American baseball fashion, we will have an opening pitch, game highlights and managers calls, a Dinger memorabilia unveiling, the closer, and of course you can't have a baseball program without the 7th inning stretch, so which will be led by one of the Jefferson Middle School students. So I'm really, really excited about this program, and to know that there are only 5 remaining Oak Ridge Bombers in our local area, and all of them will be there. And in interviewing them, they said, you know what, this program sounds great, and I let Mike speak a little bit about the history, because I was just thinking, give a little history about the program and kind of keep it moving in celebration. But he said, you know what, there's only 5 of us left. I think that was Charles Boyd who said there was only 5 of us left here. It'd be really, really great if you could get us all together. And so I'm excited about this program. The 5 remaining local Oak Ridge Bombers will be in attendance, and some of their family members. We have folks coming in from out of town. The press is really engaged. Students are really engaged. Carla's on here. I'm so thankful for the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation and the Oak Ridge History Museum, because we'll have the Oak Ridge baseball team there at the event as well. It's open to everyone, and we will hear a lot of great stories from these legends behind the plate, and many of them broke many barriers, not only locally but nationally, and we are just really excited to celebrate them. And I won't get into too much of the history because Mike is going to speak a little bit about that. But if you see on the screen to the bottom, I think left, that is the badge of William Capshaw, and he is one of the co-founders of the Oak Ridge Bombers baseball team. And not giving away too much of his story, but he came to Oak Ridge at the age of 16. That's also a secret. Don't tell anybody. He came to Oak Ridge, and despite segregated practices in the Jim Crow era South, he, along with his friend Robert Lee, co-founded the Oak Ridge Bombers baseball team. And at the top left, you'll see Charles Boyd. He was one of the first persons that I interviewed and telling him about this Oak Ridge Bombers program, who had the idea to bring everyone together. That is him. He is from Oliver Springs, but worked in the Oak Ridge plants most of his life. And that's him holding a hat of the Negro Leagues baseball team hat with all the teams, in which one of his former players or team members went on to play for the Negro League. So we're really excited. He'll be there. So everyone, if you can't come, tell someone else to come in your stead. I think it's going to be standing room only, and we're going to have lots of fun. Mike, did you want to give a little bit of the history on the Oak Ridge Bombers? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know what I did? I guess I just took the history. I kind of put it against the background of baseball and World War II, and you know, I talked about it in World War I. They suspended baseball play in 1918. When till the war was over, and so it was interesting for me. You know, I had heard of the Bombers. I've known some, you know, grandchildren and children of the Bombers, but it was a little more a little mysterious. You know, I mean, I'd read some of the things over the years. So what I did is I typically start from scratch, and I just started reading all the newspapers. I found the Bombers in, you know, the Knoxville Sentinel, the Journal. I even found them in the Chattanooga Times, some scores and some just information about some of the players. And my message I'm going to bring, besides the historical perspective of how important baseball was, and I guess, you know, not to give away too much, like you said, but basically, the commissioner wrote a letter to Roosevelt and asked in 1942 if spring training should continue, and if they should, you know, or start, and then if the season of 42 should go ahead and happen. And Roosevelt said, yes, I think it would be good for the country to have something to, you know, diversion, because the people that were playing baseball, some of them did go off to war, and the ones that didn't, he said, well, it'll keep them in a job. It'll keep the people that are working hard here at home. It'll give them something to do, you know, during the war. So similarly, the Bombers, you know, on their own, formed their own team and provided entertainment for the people during World War II, you know, just the same as the major leaguers did. And so I take that pathway and share a bit about what I did discover reading the newspaper clippings, which I thought were really interesting. The fact that they were in there so much, and the league was kind of small. It was actually called the Atomic League. So that particular league started in 46, you know, right after the bomb was dropped, and it included teams in the area. The Knoxville Tigers were evidently pretty tough, but the Bombers did beat them. There's one headline where they keep the Tigers are favored. They're favored. Oh no. And the Bombers beat them. So I don't think they beat them every time, but so there was some rivalry, you know, pretty tight among those guys, the teams they had. So yeah, I enjoyed learning about, you know, the boots on the ground, if you will, what they were doing, and the play-by-play. They mentioned a lot of names. You know, they would mention Capshaw. Hilton was the pitcher, and he was the manager. And they speak about how he thought they were going to do good in this league. In 47, the year before, they won 15 games in a row. And they were 32-7. And, you know, they were playing the same teams over and over again. So sometimes they might just have a bad night and they'd get you that night, you know, so that made it even more competitive, you know. So, yeah, that's basically what I'm going to do. And I kind of took my own route and just studied it in hopes that some of these Bombers that I know that are in the area would be here, or hoping that they were still around to be in the area. So it kind of worked out, because I mean, I knew L.C. Gibson was probably still around, and I'm hoping Rufus Shepherd is healthy and well. You know, he used to live across from us. He lived across from my parents for a while. So Dad and Rufus were pretty good friends. And I know his daughter and things like that. But so that's kind of cool. So I just kind of mentioned some of the names that were common that I knew in town, like Weatherspoon, Shepherd, and of course Gibson. And so I think it'll be exciting to have those people there, you know, and the fact that some of them are still around to show up to this event is exciting to me. So, yeah, that's basically all I have. I didn't know what the details of the arrangements of the order of things. And I didn't know, Ray, if you were going to be there at all, or if you just were anticipating not being there, because I've got my speech kind of, there's a little piece in there about that. So we can talk about that later.
No, I will not be able to.
Okay.
and I appreciate you doing the history part for me. And I apologize to all that I just cannot be there. But I did write about the bombers. There, I think, a series of 4 historically speaking columns that.
Yeah, I pulled from those, and I mentioned that and pulled from those, and yeah.
Very good. L.C. Gibson was my key to getting in contact with those
Yeah.
people then.
And I point out, not only was he a bomber, but he was also an Oak Ridge 85er too. So, so anyway.
He's very much involved in that. His story is, and I think it would be good to take just a little bit of a diversion here, if you all will allow me, and talk about LC for just a minute. There's a movie out now, just come out within the last couple of weeks. The name of the movie is Till, T-I-L-L, and it's about the lynching of Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi. That lynching because he whistled at a white girl, and then things got complicated from there and got exaggerated, and ultimately he was killed. And in the trial, they show this movie through the eyes of his mother. It's a very sad movie, but it has some good insight into that era and what happened then. But the point I want to make is that happened in August of 1955. L.C. Gibson's hometown was very near, if not Money, it was very near to that location in Mississippi. So he knew about the lynching of Emmett Till. And in September of 1955, the Oak Ridge High School and Robertsville Junior High at the time was desegregated. LC was a freshman in that class. And he says, don't you know, he had that on his mind about Emmett Till and what happened to him. And he was afraid to even look at a white person, especially a white girl. So can you imagine going into this large school of white people and just being afraid to even look anyone in the eye? That's what LC experienced. He went through his entire time at the Oak Ridge High School being as quiet as he could and staying as inconspicuous as he could. He didn't participate in any of the activities because of the fear associated with what had happened to Emmett Till. Now, this effort that Oak Ridge is making started 67 years later to recognize that Scarborough 85. I'm on that committee along with Carla, and she's right. That is going to be a major thing for Oak Ridge, and it's just getting started. The concept is just being formed. The location has been established, and the monuments will be placed there. And I think it'll be something that we'll be very proud of when it is finalized. But the bombers is a great story. Mike, do you know how long they actually played? You know when it ended?
Well, that was something I was curious about. If any of the people that were coming would have a better idea. I know that I want to say the late 50s. And I know like with Rufus Shepard, he was pitching at the high school, and I'm assuming he was pitching for the Bombers on the weekends. So he was playing a lot of baseball at some point. And I guess I kind of think he was in that last wave, which I think Rufus might be a little bit younger maybe than LC's my dad's age. And so I think Rufus is a few years younger than that. I'm not certain, because I know Rufus's children were a little younger than me. But
yeah, my thinking is it went into the 60s, but you can look at speaking
early 60s, I think, maybe. Yeah, some of the scores went on into the late 58, 59, still had headlines and stuff, or scores.
Katatra, you were going to say something? Or somebody, whoever tried to say
No,
something.
yes, I was just going to say that the African American teams, well, if you look at the history, there was an African American team, not really knowing that they were called officially yet the Oak Ridge Bombers, but started during the Manhattan Project era. And then the team went on, this African American team, which eventually was named the Oak Ridge Bombers, went on to play and disbanded in like the late 1960s.
Yeah. All right. You'll pin that down for us, Mike. And it's in my historically speaking columns. I just don't remember. Because
Yeah, I think you had said it was the 60s, but I don't know exactly when. And I guess as things became more desegregated in general, I guess it was, it shifted a bit. But
I think that's true. Anyone have questions for Katatra or Mike?
I just want to say thank you to Katatra for taking the lead on this effort. Looking at the program she's put together, I am also very excited about. It's going to be a fun program, but also full of information. So thank you, Katatra. Thank you, Mike, also for pulling together the research on this. And Ray, you've already done background information as well. So I'm looking forward to that's this Thursday, the 10th.
Did I see that it starts at 6:30?
Yes.
Now that's a little early for, you normally start around 7. So people need to know that it's going to start early. I think it's going to be a huge event. You don't want to miss it, but be planning to get there at the Midtown Community Center, 102 Robertsville Road, and be there before 6:30 if you want a seat. Katatra says you may be standing if you're not. And I want you all to know that I am just disappointed that I can't be there, but I do have a little bit of surgery scheduled, and I know I will not be able to operate. And I knew Mike could do a good job for us, and he has, as I expected he would. So I think it's going to be an outstanding event, and I'm going to try, just when I get off of this class, I'm going to try to reach out and get this documented for historically speaking. And one way I'll do that, Katatra, is, as you know, we've already talked. If you will write what you want included and then include the event, let's do that. Let me just rely on you to write that story for me. I got you in a place you can't refuse.
Oh no, I've already written a blog on it on atomichope.com. And I've also will have this all recorded for you, Ray. I'm excited that the Department of Energy, Oak Ridge Environmental Management, and I don't know if anyone on this call is aware, they have the K-25 History Center, and they have a publicity arm with the Oak Ridge Environmental Management. So they'll be doing a story on this particular program and the Oak Ridge Bombers as well. And I will have it all recorded. There'll be press there. So there will be a lot of, you won't be there, but you'll be able to see all the things that happen, and we'll have lots of pictures and so forth as well.
Good. And I think getting a video of it is important, because it'll go into our archives, and you've got a good group there. They know what they're doing. They're very professional, and I'm glad you got them to do that for us. Anyone else have any comments or questions for Katatra or Mike? All right. Anything for Mick about Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association? Any of you want to join right now?
Well, I was going to mention that our membership is way up. We are above 250 members with the ORHPA. We're happy about that. Just recently, Carla and I had a meeting with the superintendent of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park, Nikki Nicholas, and we're looking ahead to next year on activities we can plan, working more together. And we work well with the other museums already. There's lots that we could collaborate on. And so I'm looking forward to the coming year. And we'd love to have more members, whether you want to participate in the activities or just be there for support, either way, we're happy with that.
Excellent. And these meetings are held the second Thursday of each month. I believe I'm right on
Yeah,
that.
but we're not as firm on that as we used to be. COVID kind of caused us to have fewer meetings and sometimes Zoom meetings. So you can't count on showing up on that second Thursday. But maybe we'll get back to a better routine here in the next
Yeah.
year.
I would hope we can. And again, what I wanted to point out is that you don't have to be a member to attend those meetings. They're open to the public.
Correct.
And of course, more volunteers Carla can get. I would like to see the museum open every day. But again, that requires volunteers. And it is an
Yes.
excellent museum. We have 5 museums, actually 6, but we have 5 museums in Oak Ridge. And the Oak Ridge History Museum is the one that focuses most directly on the city and on the history during the Manhattan Project. So highly recommend, if you've not been there, please take the time and go. All right.
Also, I might mention, Ray, real quick, if you join the ORHPA, you can come into the museum free. So you have a free pass to come anytime to the museum, and I promise we'll only try to get you to volunteer just a couple times. So we won't press you every time. We would love for you to be a member of the association and help us keep this rolling and supporting all of the really neat exhibits that are going up. So thank you.
And Carla is kind enough to allow me to open the museum. If I have tours coming through on days other than when the museum is open, I'm able to take them in and do that. And every tour that comes to Oak Ridge, I try my best to get them into the Oak Ridge History Museum. And every time they are just blown away with what they see. And I really appreciate that consideration to allow those tours for them. I mean, we bring 65 passenger buses through Oak Ridge, and and I'm going to talk a little about that in a bit, but interestingly enough, one of the highlights will be the Oak Ridge History Museum. Any other questions or comments for Mick, Katatra, Carla, or Mike? All right. Well, you all are welcome to stay with us, or you're free to go if you've got other things you need to do. Mike said he had something he needed to do as well, and I know others of you do too. The rest of the program today, I'm going to spend time talking about some of those tours that I've brought through the city recently. And then obviously we want questions and comments from any of you participants. If you have a story that you want to ask me about, or you have anything that you'd like to include in this more stories from the Secret City class, that's what makes it rich. But I'll move now to show you some of the things that I've been doing in bringing people through Oak Ridge. And again, thank you you're welcome to go or to stay. It's up to you. But I want to start by going back to the History Museum. This is an example of one of those tours. This was a Dandridge Book Club. And these ladies and one gentleman came with them, but it's a book club. They had just read Denise Kearnan's book, The Girls of Atomic City. And they called and said they wanted to come to see this city where these girls were. So I arranged to give them a tour. And one of the tours was to set them down inside this is the meeting room for the Oak Ridge Heritage Preservation Association, but it also doubles as a really good display area for the alphabet houses and some of the things that would have been found inside the homes back during the Manhattan Project. So I'll start there and just transition from there over to some of these other tours that we've had. Oh, and by the way, I'll remind you again, Legends Behind the Plate coming up this Thursday night, November the 10th at 6:30 p.m. And I showed you these 2 exhibits of the fire, uh, the fire exhibit of old chief and the pictures about the fire department. Oh, I do want to do this. And Mick, are you still on here? I hope you are.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
still with you.
Okay, I want to bring up this update on K-25 progress. And I think you got this same information, but the rest of the people probably won't have this. So I want to tell you what's happening at the K-25 History Center, actually at the K-25 footprint, which is a part of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. And what this says is that the uh, people who've been looking at and supporting the preservation project have issued the final construction design package for the K-25 viewing platform and the site improvements at East Tennessee Technology Park. That's really the footprint of the old K-25 building. And it didn't change much from the 90% draft, except it's going into two phases. The first phase is the construction of the viewing platform and associated site improvements. Now, what that means is finishing uh, the area around the footprint, and also there will be, I think, about a dozen wayside markers that are going to be installed. And then phase two is the K-25 preservation footprint, and that will include pedestrian and vehicle access. I think it'll be a road around the footprint. I doubt that you're going to drive on the footprint, but there will be access to it. And it says they partnered with the Army Corps of Engineers for the construction, and a bid is going to be released in December for phase one, and then procurement of the construction work and the footprint will be issued after the soil remediation actions are completed. Now, that soil remediation actions is going on as we speak and has been going on for some time. Now, let me pause and say, Mick, is there anything you'd add to this, or are there any questions from anybody about what's going on out at K-25?
I could only add, Ray, that the ORHPA, with a small group led by Bill Wilcox, we worked for over a dozen years with DOE on coming up with a way to best preserve a piece of K-25 and to tell that big story. And so we're finally here, finally close to starting. I mean, they've got a great history center there now, but the viewing platform is something we've all looked forward to. Can't wait for that construction to start.
Just a little behind the scenes knowledge of what might happen. Don't you think it'd be good to name that viewing platform for Bill Wilcox?
I think so.
Oh, me, you can't ever tell what the bureaucrats will allow or what we can do, but Bill's there's a good picture of him inside right in the entranceway of the K-25 History Museum. He would be proud of that museum. I assure you he would. And Bill's presence in Oak Ridge, he was the technical director for both K-25 and Y-12, but he was also the first Oak Ridge city historian, position that I proudly hold now. And one other thing he did, excuse me, he created an award for the Aid for Distressed Families of Appalachian Counties, and he actually created it, and I'm so proud of this. I talk about it every time I get a chance. He created it with me in mind. He wanted me to have that award. Now, he didn't name the award. He just said, you're going to do something, give it to Ray Smith and try to raise money on it. So they agreed to that. And then he died before we had the event. By the way, they lied to me during that whole thing. I was on the selection committee for who would get the award, and I never even thought it was me. They kept lying to me until the day that it happened when we were out at the New Hope Center for the event, and I looked out the door, and here come my two sons walking in. And now they live in Middle Tennessee, so I knew something was up when I saw them there. But at any rate, we had that 10th event Saturday night at the Doubletree, and we honored Pat Postma as the bow tie winner. Oh, by the way, the Aid for Distressed Families of Appalachian County named the award after Bill's death for Bill, Bill Cox Bow Tie Award. And his son and family come every year, and he made a good talk for us Saturday night. Bill Wilcox deserves as much recognition as we can get for him. There is a room named for him out at the Heritage Center, but if they put in an airport, that building will be torn down. Any questions from any of the rest of you about K-25 and what's happening out there? That museum opened the last week of February in 2020, closed the second week in March 2020, stayed closed for a year and a half, but it's open now. And it is our most recent museum and an excellent exhibit of the K-25 history.
Is the K-20,
Yeah.
is the K-25 Overlook still open?
Yes, it is. That Happy Valley property is owned now by a private individual, and he put the money in to get that overlook renovated. It has an exhibit, a good timeline in there of the K-25 history. It's open every day. The fire department, I believe, goes over and opens the gate. And there's a good picnic area out behind it. One of my tours that I took out there, I had them have a picnic at that area, and they enjoyed that. But yes, the overlook is open to the public and being provided for us by this private individual. I wish I could think of his name. But I tell people that I have taken all of the little spots in my brain that were reserved for names, and I have replaced that with historical facts. So I no longer have to remember names. Any other questions before we move on? Thank you for that. I would not have mentioned the overlook if you hadn't said it. Okay. All right, then we will move on to some other activities. And I want to plug volunteers again. Carla mentioned that we need them desperately. You know, COVID has done something to us that I don't think we realize. And part of it you can see when you look at restaurants and you look at all of these signs saying, we're hiring, we want people to work. People won't work. I mean, you can't find them. I had a fellow last night tell me he had 12 projects and he could not hire enough people to do those projects. I don't know what happened, but COVID caused people to stop wanting to work. Now, it also caused them to stop wanting to volunteer. And of course, over the last 2 years, we've lost several of our more senior volunteers. But this is a dinner or a lunch at the Oak Ridge or at the American Museum of Science and Energy, honoring volunteers. And also the high school choir, or I don't know exactly what she calls them. Hills Reagan is the one that brings them to us, but they were there and they were giving us entertainment. And let's see if I can show you just a little of that entertainment. Tell me, can you hear that? You couldn't. All right, now wait just a minute. Let's fix it. Let's go back and do a share and share sound. This Zoom is something, but you got to do it just right. Now that's not what I wanted to see. All right, now let's see if you hear sound. Do you hear it?
Yep.
All right. All right, now let me go back. Wait a minute, I got something in the chat. Ray, getting softer and softer. I'm speaking as loud as I can. Are you all,
Okay.
all right? Somebody tell me if you're hearing me. Mick, you're shaking your head. You all right? Okay.
Yes, I'm fine. I can hear you well.
All right, good. Thank you for that. I got to get this back up. Give me just a minute. I love Zoom. All right, we're back now. And this is the event that we had for volunteers. And I just want to encourage everyone to consider volunteering. So I'm going to take these tours kind of in reverse order. This one is the Stephen Ambrose tour. Now, this tour, if you don't know who Stephen Ambrose was, he's passed away now, but he was the author of the book Band of Brothers. And also they made a movie about that. And his foundation is the one that actually started the World War II Museum in New Orleans. So it's a huge organization. They had, this tour was a Manhattan Project Sites tour. They started in Oak Ridge, and then they went to Los Alamos, they went to Hanford, and they even got special permission to go into the Trinity site. Now, in addition to that, they have a tour that is the Pacific Islands tour of World War II. And they go to all of the islands, Iwo Jima and to Tinian. This gentleman here with the beard lives on Tinian Island. This is the group. We made their picture out at the Y12 History Center. By the way, the public is now able to go to the Y12 History Center again on Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4:30, I believe, during the regular hours. And all you need to do is walk up to the door, push the little intercom button and tell them you want to see the History Center, and they'll let you right in. Be careful and not take any pictures outside the History Center, but once you get inside, you can make all the pictures that you want in the History Center. And they've done a renovation of the History Center. They've got several displays up now that if you haven't been there in the last little while, you will not have seen. They're really well done, and I highly recommend you going to the History Center. This is the gentleman, Don Farrell, who lives on Tinian Island, was on this tour, and he's written a book, The Atomic Bomb Island. So I bought the book on Amazon while I was sitting there talking to him. And they had me come out to their evening before the tours, had me meet them in the DoubleTree and just talk about Oak Ridge history, and then give them the tour all the next day. Then I had another tour group. Now this group was not, it was a church group that had come through, and they arranged for me to give them a tour, and I've got them here inside the American Museum of Science and Energy. And one of the members, this gentleman here, was a member of the 509th Composite Group. That's the one that had the Enola Gay in the boxcar and actually dropped the bombs. And he was a member of that group. So when I got him in the auditorium in the American Museum of Science and Energy, I showed him the documentary film, The Enola Gay. And before I showed the film, I introduced him as having been a member of that group, the 509th Composite Group. And they didn't even know, of course, he wasn't speaking about himself, so they didn't even know he was that he had that connection, but was just a member of their group. So I let him stand up and let them ask him some questions, and we had a good interchange. And then we watched the movie together. Speaking of K-25, there's a bridge, and Mick, you know the history of this bridge too, but this bridge is on the on Poplar Creek. It's overall, I'm taking the picture from just off of Blair Road. And it's this bridge was brought in to actually taken down from Kingston and brought in and installed here. It was a TVA bridge, I believe, installed here at the K-25 site. Just a little tidbit of history about one of our railroad bridges. Another little bit of history. We had a group come through on October 22nd. The crew members of the USS Oak Ridge, which is a ship that's a very unique ship that was named for Oak Ridge. And it is a submarine tender. I don't know exactly how to explain it to you. It's a dry dock. In other words, you bring the submarine in between or inside the boat between two long sides of the boat, and then they're able to raise that up out of the water and do repairs to the submarine. Now, it's been taken out of service, but the crew members have come to Oak Ridge, I believe, for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, maybe 7, over the last few years, and have their reunion here. And during one of those reunions, I believe in about 2016, they brought this bell, and they had it engraved, USS Oak Ridge, and they brought the bell and donated it to the city of Oak Ridge. Now, it's located in the municipal building just inside the main lobby on the north side, like you were coming in where city council meets. It's just to the right of there. Now, I'm writing a historically speaking column about this bell, or about the group, and the fact that they come here so often. And in doing that, I was interviewing one of the people, and he told me how this bell came to be. It was found in a scrapyard in Florida, kept in a man's garage for 30 years. And then when they decided to commemorate the Oak Ridge ship, they had it engraved. Now, inside, they also had got this bolt to tie it up. But inside this whole contraption, there's a time capsule of a note that this guy has written telling about how this bell came to be and all the people who were involved in it. But you can't get to the note without disassembling the bell. But at any rate, that's in our municipal building, and it is to commemorate the connection between the city of Oak Ridge and the USS Oak Ridge ship. Very interesting people that we have here. These are the crew members that are still alive. They went to the International Friendship Bell and they read off the names of the ones who have passed away. And at each name, they would ring the bell. It was a very solemn ceremony. And I enjoyed being a part of it. They really do like our mayor. So they wanted a picture with him. When he come in, the mayor and Judy held a reception, a sponsored reception for them at the Comfort Inn. And they wanted to get their picture made with the mayor. So really, really good relationship that's been formed there. Here's another little bit of trivia for you. The first electricity produced by a nuclear reactor was produced at the Oak Ridge X10 graphite reactor. The scientists out there knew that they were building a reactor in Idaho, and the purpose of the reactor was to produce electricity. So they said, let's beat them to the punch. So they created this small steam engine, turning this small generator, took a can of water and set it in next to the reactor and turned it into steam, used that steam, piped it out and used that steam to turn this steam engine, which turned this generator, which created the electricity to burn a flashlight bulb. So this is at the graphite reactor, and it's a place that every tour that I take out there, I point out this little bit of history about the first electricity produced by a nuclear reactor. Okay, I've only got 5 more minutes, so let's move. This one is where Opal Talbot came. She's a 101-year-old Cayatron girl, and she came. By the way, I've told you where this Cayatron girl came from. This terminology. They didn't call them that back then. They called them cubicle operators. But in 2004, when Gladys Owens first came back to Oak Ridge, she saw her picture in that famous Ed Westcott picture of those girls sitting on a stool, and she told Steve Stowe, "That's me in that picture." Steve called me and said, "Ray, I found you a Cayatron girl." Well, we started using that term, and that thing has stuck. Now everybody thinks that these are Cayatron girls. They really were cubicle operators. But she was so glad to be here. They interviewed her at the museum and had a birthday lunch for her, and gave her a proclamation, just really played it up for her. Then we took her out to Y12, and I have to tell this on Gene Patterson. He's a really good friend of mine, and he and I worked together about Y12. And speaking of Y12, let me point out, inside the History Center is this timeline. Mick, if you've not seen it, you need to go look at it. This is one of
Yes,
seen it?
I've seen it.
It's a good timeline, don't you agree? They've done a good job.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and it's on the wall inside the History Center. But anyway, she went out there, and Gene took her on a driving tour. Just took her around and drove her by the Cayatron building so she could say, "Yeah, there's the building that I worked in." I'm not sure she remembered which one, but it didn't matter. And when she got through, this is so cute. You have to realize these people, when they get this age, they can't hear. And when she got through, Gene said, "Well, I hope you enjoyed my tour." She said, "Young man, I did. I loved the tour, but I didn't hear a word you said." Oh, I love these people for sure. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and it's 37:40. We got 3 minutes, but I'm going to show you one map before we stop. And this one is an old map of the area. You see, Winters is over here. That's Oliver Springs. And you'll notice that Beaver Creek is here. What I want you to notice is Black Oak Ridge. That's where Oak Ridge is located now. And of course, this shows the old road. I'm so proud of the Emery Road that comes through here. And it's shown over here. But also, I want you to notice that there's another Black Oak Ridge. Mick, did you know that there was another Black Oak Ridge? I did not.
I'd heard that. Yeah, I couldn't have put my finger on that on the map, but
Yeah.
yes.
And see, here's the Emery Road, spelled correctly, Emery, coming down, and then it would have crossed over and come through what's now Oak Ridge, and through Winters Gap and on, and actually went to Nashville. But and the Emery River, if you notice, it's spelled with an E too, appropriately. We put it with an O now. But I just was so glad to see this map when I got it to show Black Oak Ridge and 2 locations. All right, we're about out of time. Is there any questions or comments that anyone would like to make before we wrap up today's session? Any questions? We'll do this again next Monday, same time, and I'll try my best to keep that same link working so we can have it again. Thank you all so much for being with me. And any final comments or questions from anyone? Ann? You look like
thank you.
You're welcome. I can always count on Ann to tell me thank you. She appreciates what we're doing and enjoys it, and it's good to have you here. Yes, Mary.
Have you ever considered having a Rhodes Scholar program through Oak Ridge? I think that would be a wonderful thing. I have participated in grandparents and kids Rhodes Scholar, and I think that would be terrific if you all could set that up. I don't know all the particulars or the, the requirements, et cetera, but that seems to me would be a great thing for kids.
We've done that.
grandparents.
We've actually had the Rhodes Scholar group come through, and they know about us, and they do include us on tours. I hope I'm talking about the same group. I may or may not be, but that's a good idea. There are a lot of tourism groups that know about Oak Ridge, and it's not unusual for Katie Watt through the Explore Oak Ridge to get calls from them, and she promotes us really well. And we have a lot of them that come back every year, and I see the same tour guides, but different people, participants on the tours. So we're on the route of the large tour groups. Okay, thank you all very much, and we'll see you next week.